Hey, what's up guys, and welcome to a new video. Today we will be talking about what runes to take on Taric and how to build him in the preseason. So let's get right into it. So this is the rune page I take on Taric, Inspiration and Resolve. And I take this because Glacial Augment feels really strong on Taric. So what it does is you basically get a 2-second slow every 7 to 4 seconds. And this slow is on your auto attacks is going to be 40 to 50%. So, oh yeah, it also does a bonus on with active items, but I mean that's not the important part. The important part is that this helps you land your Dazzle a lot in laning phase. You throw out your E, you auto attack the enemy champion, and they're slowed, and it's a lot easier to land your Dazzle. So this helps you be a lot more aggressive in lane, land your Dazzles, chase down enemies, which is one of Taric's weaknesses, because of Taric's passive, he can stay in combat for a really long time and do a lot of sustained damage, but he can't stick on enemies that are running away, which is why like good counters against him are like Janna, who can disengage really well. But Glacial Augment, this solves a lot of Taric's problems. Unsealed Spellbook, that's pretty troll. I don't know who that's even good on yet, we'll have to see. And Kleptomancy, that's something you can take, but you're going to have to be in combat a lot to get enough value out of this to justify taking it. So I don't think it's great, but it has an interesting win rate, but really low pick rate, so we'll talk about that later. So onto minor runes. Alright, these are pretty standard. I take Biscuit Delivery because it helps you in lane, it gives you permanent mana, and the other ones just suck. Like, you don't need a stopwatch, it's not going to build in anything. And Hextech Flash, that's just a bad, no, that's a noob trap, don't take it. The 2-second channel just makes it worthless on anyone but like some junglers. Magical Footwear is really good. Just a free 350 gold after 10 minutes, and plus the 10 movement speed, so that's kind of worth a little bit more than 350 gold. Futures Market is okay if you want to get some early game wards and stuff, but you're going to be losing gold if you take this. Whereas Magical Footwear is just free gold, which is extra valuable in a support because your gold income is going to be lower than your teammates anyway. And this is not a support rune. So for our final mini rune for Inspiration, we actually have a first choice here. Cosmic Insight and Approach Velocity, which are both good on Taric, because here we got movement speed towards enemy champions that are movement impaired or allied champions that are movement impaired, which includes both your stun and Glacial Augment slow. And with Cosmic Insight, we just get general CDR, item CDR, which is really good, and Summoner Spell CDR. So because I'm taking Glacial Augment, I tested both these out and I feel like Approach Velocity is a bit better. But if I wasn't, and I was going a Resolve tree, then I think Cosmic Insight would win. But these are both really good on Taric. But since Approach Velocity synergizes with Glacial Augment, I think it has the edge here. So on for secondary, you kind of have to take Resolve when you take Inspiration as the first tree, because your bonus when you start with Inspiration is going to depend on what tree you go into. You can get attack speed, 80 or AP, or health, and obviously you need the health. Like, the other stats are not worthwhile on Taric at all. So you're going to take Resolve, which is good because you're going to want those runes anyway. And Conditioning, that's a must. Plus 8 armor and MR and the 5% bonus is just really strong. Because of supports having weak stats in general, you can take Iron Skin sometimes, but it's really not justified. Conditioning is definitely the better rune right now. And the main choice here is between Font of Life and Revitalize. And I think Font of Life is a bit better because you can stun enemy champions and get a heal off that, while this just has a small bonus of heal. And hopefully if you're good, you won't even be getting that 10% bonus because you won't even get low since you're spamming your heal, right? So there are alternative rune trees that you can take on Taric, but I don't like them as much as Glacial Augment, but we'll go over them quickly anyway. So one of them is going to be Aftershock for Resolve, and then Sorcery. So what you basically get here, obviously you take Font of Life, Conditioning, Revitalize, and what Aftershock is going to do for you is make you a lot tankier when you go in and land your stun. And you can take Sorcery as a secondary, just because Mana Flow banned. That's going to help you spam your Q a bit more in lane. And since you can keep using Taric's Q without any cooldown as long as you're auto-attacking minions or something, as long as Taric has mana, you can use it for health. For here you can either take Transcendence or the movement speed. I'm honestly not sure which is better. I think the movement speed is probably the better one. Personally, I don't like this tree as much, just because you don't really get that utility from Glacial Augment. And plus, I build some mana items, so you don't really have to deal with this problem. There are two more that you can do from Resolve. You can either go Inspiration, take these two, or take Biscuit, Magical Footwear. I just love Magical Footwear. It's just free gold. Is Zombie Ward and Ingenious Hunter. Now I would say this is probably the second best tree to go on Taric, because Ingenious Hunter gives you active item CDR upon getting a takedown, which is a kill or assist on an enemy champion. So this is definitely going to be a more late game oriented rune page, since this is going to help you spam your Locket, spam your Redemption, whatever active items you're building. This rune page also takes advantage of Zombie Ward, which is extremely powerful in supports. You're clearing wards all the time, buying control wards, getting sweeper lenses, and this will give you a ward every single time you take down an enemy ward. It also doesn't count towards your ward limit, so you can keep getting zombie wards all over the map, and this helps with vision a lot. Alright, so now I'm going to talk about Aftershock and Guardian. I think Guardian is a noob trap. 45-second cooldown, it's honestly not that competitive of rune. Taric's the type of champion that should take Guardian, because Guardian is meant for tanky supports. But Guardian is so weak with the 45-second cooldown, you get poked with one auto attack in lane, and you lose this mastery for 45 seconds. Aftershock isn't the best, but it is less than half the cooldown. It also makes you tanky with the armor and MR, and it does damage. So unless you're in a really passive lane, where maybe you're against a Janna or something, which you should probably ban Janna if you're going to play Taric anyway, just because that's not a fun lane. But if you are, you can take Guardian just because you're going to play passive, you're going to pull it back, just wait till the late game, because you're not going to get many kills in lane. Then maybe you can take Guardian, then maybe it's justified. But in general, if you're going to be fighting, and since I play a more aggressive playstyle, Aftershock is definitely going to be the more powerful rune here. So now we're going to go on to Kleptomancy. Is this any good? I don't know. It can be a really niche pick if you're constantly in combat, and you can keep using it, but in general, and in most matchups, you're not going to get enough value out of it. It's better for champions that can poke from a range like Sona or Ezreal. So now onto Taric Top. The fun, almost troll pick, except it works. So first we're going to have to take Grasp Me Undying. It's really good, it gives you permanent HP, and you're going to keep staying in combat and keep proccing this. Here it's a bit different than on support. We're going to want to take Unflinching. Taric's the type of champion that wants to stay in combat, keep auto-attacking, and that's how he wears enemy champions down. And with Tenacity, he's going to keep auto-attacking, and he keep healing himself, keep landing those dazzles. We're going to keep Conditioning here since it's so powerful, but if you're in a lane matchup where you're being bullied really hard, you're against a Renekton or something, and it's just a miserable time. Now for the last one. Instead of taking Revitalize, which is a more support-oriented rune, we're going to want to take Overgrowth. Now Overgrowth is something that isn't that helpful for supports, partially because 1, you're not going to get that much health, and 2, you're going to want to roam around the map. But for a top laner, who stays in lane and also builds more health, you're going to get a lot more value out of this. And eventually it's going to make you pretty tanky in the late game, especially with Grasp giving you more health. So for a secondary, we're going to take Precision. Although Tenacity is nice, Legend Tenacity is pretty good. I mean, it's not like we want bonus attack speed or a little bit extra damage, although those are nice, but not as good as Tenacity in general. But it's because of this rune. Presence of Mind is insane on Taric. Every time you level up or get a takedown, which is a kill or assist, all your abilities cost no mana for 5 seconds. Taric's the type of champion that can spam his abilities all the time as long as he has mana, and this rune, every single time he levels up, allows him to do just that. Alternatively, you can take Precision first and go press the attack, but my problem with that rune page is that you're going to have Resolve in the secondary, which is going to give you bonus attack speed. And you do not need that on Taric. That's a useless stat, because your passive gives you 100% attack speed. After that, you don't need any more, as long as your abilities keep cycling. So now on to items. We're obviously going to want to start with the Relic Shield and 3 pots. Ancient Coin is something that was better in the Ardent meta, where you had to rush Ardent Sensor no matter what since it was that broken. So you could start Ancient Coin for the extra gold. But it never really felt that good in Taric because, first of all, you're autoing minions anyway for your passive. And secondly, this gives you health, which is actually a much more valuable stat. So I always build Relic Shield. It gives a fair amount of gold, not quite as much as the Ancient Coin line, but it has better stats and sustain the early game, which is something that we're going to focus on for Taric's build. We're going to want to make up for Taric's weaknesses instead of trying to amplify his strengths, because Taric is someone that's a really strong champion in the late game, but you have to get there. You have to survive the early game poke, the hard laning phases, and especially in a really snowbally early game, we have to win lane. And if not, well, at least Taric skills. So we don't want to lose lane, that's for sure. So yeah, we're going to start Relic Shield 3 pots. You can take Refillable, but I think it's weaker because it gives you a lot less sustain before your first back, which is where you're a lot more vulnerable to being poked down and oppressed in the early laning phase. So next, we're going to get to Targons first. That's going to get you more gold, it's going to make you tankier. That's probably something you want before it's Sightstone, in most cases. If the enemy jungler is camping you, just focus getting on Sightstone first. If the enemy jungler is camping you, just focus on getting Sightstone first. Oh yeah, something that isn't in this build, that you always want to buy, control wards. Just always buy control wards. If you don't have a control ward in the map, you should have one in your inventory. Just keep buying them, keep placing them. They give you so much control over the game, no pun intended. So yeah, Sightstone's next, it's pretty normal. Now for boots, you can take a lot of different things in Taric. Ninja Tabi, Ionian boots, and Merc treads are all really good options. The only question is, so which one do I take? And that really depends on the game. If they have a lot of AD, a lot of AP or CC, or you're really fed and you want to keep stomping the enemy team. I have Boots of Swiftness here just because it's technically something that you can build. It's just usually not optimal. But if you're going to like something that you're always slowed, like a Trundle bot lane or something that's just really obnoxious because you're perma-slowed, then I mean that's what Boots of Swiftness are for. So for our core build, we're going to want to get Eye of the Equinox. That's just a great item for Taric. It's efficient, you got 500 health, and CDR all in one spot. Glacial Shroud is something that I often get pretty early into the game. I don't upgrade it, but I just keep it because it has everything that Taric wants. Armor, mana, and CDR. The Taric can build it into basically anything, as we'll get to in a second, but by itself, it's just a perfect item in Taric. So I often get it just even before the other support items. So your core support items are going to be Knight's Vow, Locket of the Iron Solari, and Ardent Sensor. Now it's not necessarily in this order, and it often depends on the enemy team. And it depends on your team too. For example, if you have a Kog'Maw or someone that uses Ardent Sensor really well, you're probably going to want to rush that. Like even before any of these items. But if you have a Jhin, or someone that barely uses this at all, you could even skip it. You don't even have to build it. Meanwhile for Knight's Vow, the stats just work really well with Taric, and as well as you taking damage for them. It's just a great support item on Taric, there's not really any debate over that. And of course Locket is just a great generic support item. It's a shield, but it works especially well in Taric because you want to keep your teammates alive before your ultimate goes off. Since your ult has a 2.5 second delay, and you use it when the enemy team engages, or when you engage on them, it's not going to be on right away because you don't want to use it too early. This like instant shield can definitely help out a lot more than say Redemption. So now we're on to situational items. So what are you going to build like Glacial Shroud into? Well, Taric can basically use any item that it builds into. So first we're going to talk about Frozen Heart. That's just a generic armor. It got buffed recently, so it's pretty good. It's a ton of armor. It's great against full AD comps and comps with a lot of on-hit users because of the attack speed lower. It's got mana. Taric needs mana. It's got CDR, 20% actually, so that's really good. And of course more armor, which goes with Bastion. I think the second best Glacial Shroud item is going to be Zeke's Convergence. Now this is a really unconventional item, and you don't see it much, but if you have the right AD carry and they're fed, this is a fantastic item. So when you're usually going to want to build this is when your AD carry applies damage to a lot of people at once. Like say a Twitch opening up with his ultimate on the enemy team. It's going to be dealing an extra burn damage over time from your AD carry or whoever you put it on. You can put it on your mid laner if they're really fed too. But this is definitely going to help you out a lot. But it's more of a late game pick, so you won't usually rush it unless your AD carry is really ahead. Next is Righteous Glory, which I don't like a lot in Taric. I feel like you want your teammates to engage for you. You're not the tankiest, and you don't want to be. You want to be the secondary front line. You don't want to be the main tank, the front line, the engager. You can engage from a distance because of Bastion, and stay by your carries. So I don't think this is a great choice in Taric. An Iceborne Gauntlet is going to be something that's only good if you're really ahead. But it is really good on Taric. The thing is, if you build Taric with the rune Glacial Augment, it's kind of redundant and it's not going to have that much value, so I don't build it as much anymore. You can build any of these items or even other items that aren't listed here, since builds are supposed to be situational. Redemption, that's just a great support item overall. This helps with crit. Thornmail helps with just a lot of damage that isn't necessarily crit. Sustained magic damage and magic damage plus you get more healing. So this is generally what I build in Taric, but again, just because you see a YouTube video that tells you what to build on a champion does not mean you want to build that every single game. Look at the enemy team comp, look at your team comp, and see what your team needs. So for Taric top, you're going to want to build most of the same items that you do in support. The difference is you start with Iceborne Gauntlet. You need this for the mana, for the CDR. Basically helps you get your combo going. And then next, of course, since it's all armor, you want an HP and maybe some magic resist item, so I usually get Spirit Visage second. Depends on the enemy team, of course. And then after that, you're going to want to build a lot of the same support items, like Ardent Sensor and stuff like that, so that way you can be a secondary support for your team, except tankier. And that's pretty good, especially in this AD meta, and you don't really need to worry about the split pushing threat and trying to be one, as much of being a help for your team to win those team fights, which is what Taric top is really good at. For Taric's ability sequence, you're going to want to start Dazzle, because that's what's going to help you win trades to level 1. But after that, you're going to want to do something interesting where you put 1 point in Bastion, then 2 points in Q, and then you max EQW. Now you need the 2 points in Q to make it even worth casting, because before then, the healing is barely anything, and it's not really worth the mana to use to cast it. But with 2 stacks, you can do this indefinite combo, where you auto-attack 2 times Q, auto-attack 2 times Q, and it's a cycle that works with your passive, so that you can keep your passive up, you can keep the extra damage. Then after that, you want your E for damage, and CDR, your Q stacks for better healing, and then finally your W, which doesn't do much for your stats, but the CDR is nice. And then of course, level your ultimate whenever you can. Alright, I hope you enjoyed that different style of video. Let me know in the comments below what kind of video you'd like to see next. Thank you guys for watching, and have a good day.